It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Lori is here, so is Renee, Andy, and Alex. Alex has a big announcement about future plans. We'll talk about the MacBook keyboard making its debut at the Oscars, and not in a good way, and whether Samsung's Galaxy Z Flip portends a new future for smartphones. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly. MacBreak Weekly comes to you from Twit's LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure they are by making access and authentication seamless. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 700, recorded Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. You don't have to yell. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by FreshBooks, an easy-to-use accounting software designed specifically with you in mind, small business owner. Try it free for 30 days at freshbooks.com/MacBreak. And by IT Pro TV. Get the most up-to-date IT training with IT Pro TV. Their video courses, virtual labs, and practice tests will give you everything you need to become a successful IT professional. Visit itpro.tv/MacBreak for an additional 30% off for the lifetime of your active subscription. Use the code MacBreak30 at checkout. And by LastPass. Reused passwords are compromising the security of businesses worldwide. LastPass will ensure that your employees are using passwords securely by generating strong passwords. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple. Lori Gill is here. Thank you, Lori Gill, for being here, managing editor at imore.com. Appleaholic. She's closed all her tabs. She's ready to rock.
I still have a bad feed, though.
No, you're better. You're better. Also, you could see next to me in studio with us. We've been very fortunate the last few months.
Yeah.
Alex Lindsay's here from the Pixel Corps at Alex Lindsay. To my right, Mr. Andy Anatko from the beautiful WGBH in Boston.
Hello.
Hello. And Renee Ritchie, who's, of course, our overachieving video guy. Fancy cameras, fancy lights, fancy everything. Hi, Renee from imore.com/vector.
I'm like baby Alex Lindsay.
Little tiny. No. I think you're starting to outpace Alex. I think you're rapidly.
Not even in my wildest dreams.
So we start the show today, as we will start every show this week, with news from the Oscars. No, this is. But by the way, is this episode 700? Am I seeing that correctly?
Congratulations.
Yay. Woo. 700 episodes of this show. Thanks really to this guy right here. Alex Lindsay started MacBreak 700 some shows ago.
He was 8 years old at the time.
Would have never gotten this far if it was just me. So I'm glad you guys took it over and ran with it. So
Taika
did a better job.
Waititi. We saw it all on the Oscars. Remember this? Right after Taika Waititi wins an Oscar for Best Screenplay for Jojo Rabbit, he goes backstage, gives a press conference in which he announces he's got the world at his fingertips, the most bully of all pulpits. What does he say? They ask him, what would you like the Writers Guild of America to fight for? He says, you got to tell Apple, those keyboards suck. Finally, somebody's telling the truth at the Oscars. This is, it says he's joking. That sounds pretty serious.
No, he's not joking. He's not happy.
A screenwriter. He spends a lot of time on his computer.
Wouldn't it have been great, though, if he did it like he did it in the Avengers, where he's doing the Korg voice, going, Thor, Apple's not making good keyboards anymore, Thor. Can you have a talk with them? And then Thor puts on the headset and talks to Tim Cook and says, listen, you make good keyboards, or I'll be over there and I'll shove this hammer.
You gotta stop reading comic books.
And Tim would still say, we believe this is the best compromise between. Our customers love this keyboard.
I think it was the one useful thing that was said during the Oscars.
That's a huge. Yeah, the Oscars were horrible, but this is
that's a huge.
This
black
is
eye.
a huge black eye for Apple, and Apple, by the way, which is opening offices in Culver City, along with some of these other streamers, because they want to be in Hollywood. They had to be cringing on this.
Oh yeah.
And yet, is there anybody who's willing to say that Taika Waititi was wrong?
But
I mean, he could get a better keyboard.
But you also want to point out like how much dominance Apple has when he had to find one person over on the side that doesn't use a Mac to write everything that they do.
If there's a silver lining, he's not willing to move to a Lenovo ThinkPad, which has a better keyboard. He wants to use a Mac.
He didn't say, I have moved over to a PC.
No.
He said,
that's the bigger problem. If he'd said, I love Dell keyboards, that would have been a way worse problem for Apple.
Yeah.
You're right.
You got to look at the silver lining there.
I just can't imagine what it must have been like for those entertainment journalists to hear that. Like, what?
They're cringing.
We're supposed to be talking about movies right now.
They're cringing.
Computers. What's going on?
They're probably nodding their head because they're writing their articles on a Mac, talking to screenwriters who all write everything on a Mac. So they're all in the same.
But how do I put this in Deadspin?
I also feel bad for the engineers at Apple who work on that keyboard because they're doing the best they can. I've complained as loudly as anybody else about it, but I understand that this is some teams, like, this is what they do all day long. And just when they start to get some positive reviews over the latest generation of their really bad idea for a keyboard, now again, this is all over the news because he didn't say it as a quick quip and then let's talk about serious issues about the WGA negotiating for better for more rights and more respectability with the studios. It's like, no, I am on this. I thought I was just going to stop after one line, but I've tapped into a deep-seated well of pain here, and you've got thousands of people nodding and saying, yes, I love you. I'm buying your T-shirt. I'm subscribing to your seminar. So I have to. You don't like to be called out on a project that you worked really hard on, you're doing your best on, and you got to take a turn to the donkey booth. But that's
Andy,
painful.
you're taking empathy way too far on this one. I don't feel bad for the engineers. This is a problem. It couldn't be any worse. Presumably, Apple is going to make all of the next laptops have. Because do we agree that the new 16-inch keyboard at least is usable? Nobody asked him about that. Taiki, if you're listening, Waititi, what do you think of the new one? Have you?
Yeah,
he can afford to get the new one.
It's way too big a computer for him. No, but it's way too big a computer for
a
normal, like an average writer.
He wants an Air. Yeah.
Yeah, an Air or even a 13-inch. I mean, I don't think many people who are just writing want to carry a 16-inch laptop.
Will the new Air? What do you think? Will they all have?
I'm really hoping, because they hedged. Like they were hedging a lot about how Butterfly weren't to ban, and I don't know if that's just face saving. Hedging about how Butterfly still has its place and it's still important. But this they think is a more pro, because there's no such thing as a more pro. People write on smaller laptops. Those are pro laptops too. So my hope is that Magic Keyboard all the things as fast as possible. And if they were holding any desire to keep the Butterfly keyboard around, even for ultra thin new computers that they're working on, I just hope they abandon all those plans.
I don't even know how you could write a whole script on a Butterfly keyboard.
Apparently I can write a ton on it.
He evidently did, but
it's fine for me. But I don't like that other people hate it.
Yeah.
If in the last act your main character becomes an absolute psychopath and wants to kill everything in the world, I think that would be an asset. But otherwise,
no. But I've written like 2 million words on those Butterfly keyboards, and they don't bother me at all. But it is. Like I said before, if other people don't like them, if a large percentage of other people, there's no other manufacturer you can go to for a Mac laptop. So that is a complete deal breaker. You have to have a keyboard that maybe not every single person loves it, but nobody has any problem with it whatsoever.
I've had one. I got it right when it came out, the 12-inch or whatever, and just, I could write notes on it and stuff like that, but I immediately was just like, it became an extra laptop really quickly because it was just so, it drove me so crazy.
Well, many of us ended up, dragging our 2015 MacBooks out of
still have it, and now I'm going to get the 2016.
I just feel vindicated because Andy and I have been bitching about this keyboard for like a year, 2 years, and finally, here's an Oscar winner actually taking the time in his press conference where he's being congratulated for getting best original screenplay, and that's what he says.
Some people talked about the climate. Some people talked about Trump. He took on an important subject here and talked about keyboards.
Apparently,
I
learned that we're artificially inseminating cows. I didn't know that. So that's,
Was Tim Cook there like he was with Ricky Gervais?
I know. That would be scary. Poor Tim had to sit through Ricky Gervais. I saw Jeff Bezos in the Oscar audience. I don't think Apple was nominated for anything. So there was
Did you hear what they said to Bezos? That he thought the Marriage Story was fiction or something? That was like that.
Well, at least he used his time in his Oscar speech on a problem that's actually capable of being solved.
Something we can do something.
That you don't have to be you have to be a real cynic to think that we will never be able to figure out how to build a decent keyboard for a MacBook. Whereas, again, global warming. Good luck, great grandkids. Sorry about the mess, but you're going to have to deal with it.
I thought Steve Martin's comment that he didn't want to say anything bad about Amazon because he still wants to get his packages on time. That was the best line in the whole thing.
Steve is a down-to-earth guy. He really means it. I'm
and
sure.
Why is anyone not hosting the Oscars? Oh, because of Twitter.
Which is true, I think.
Yes.
Actually.
That is true.
In fact, you could see the influence of Twitter and the social media world on the Oscars, because what's Eminem doing there? It's like they're trying desperately to stay relevant, and like
your dad is programming.
It's like your dad is programming it, and I'm your dad, so he's even my dad. It's somebody even older than me.
Renee, can I say that you got some gray hairs there too? You're not entitled to say that Eminem is one of those old fogey musical acts. Okay.
No, but I recognize that I'm old.
Lori
kids today, they would have had TikTok stars up there if they were really hip.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that I didn't enjoy Eminem's performance. It just was a non sequitur. It was completely...
I was confused.
It was like, what? I'm sorry. Is that Eminem? What is he singing?
Why are we doing this?
What was this nominated again? What happened? Yeah. All right, enough Oscar talk. Although I have to say, okay, I'm going to stay off topic again because we're running a little late today because we just watched Samsung launch 2 new phones. It's Galaxy Buds at the annual Unpacked event 2020. One phone looks just like an iPhone, as Samsung phones have for forever and ever. That's the S20. And there's 3 of them. But they're going after the iPhone. They focused on photography and in particular focused on videography, which is where the iPhone has had an upper hand even over the Google Pixels forever. Renee, your colleague actually has an S20 and did a review of video from both the iPhone and the S20. What was his conclusion?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a lot. There was a few takeaways that I really thought was interesting. One is they've got a very iPhone Pixel style camera bump, which is like a bit of a regression because I always thought Samsung had nicer looking cameras on the back than most other vendors. But there's just so much gear you want to pack in there now that seems to be where everybody is packing it. And they're going up, they're taking a page out of Huawei's playbook, and that is off the record. They're recognizing that they just don't have the same sort of machine learning prowess or the same silicon prowess that Apple or Google has. So they're putting massive 108 megapixel sensor in there, and they're pixel binning it, which means like you combine the pixels to try to get an image that's better than the pixels by themselves would produce. And they took Google Super Zoom and they've got to like 10 times, 100 times with digital zoom. And they do this one shot where you're just at something and you fly. It looks like you're flying all the way backwards. And that kind of stuff, that and the macro stuff they're doing on the light cameras is just super interesting to me. It feels like the next stage of computational photography. The video stuff I was I'm more concerned about because they spend a lot of time saying 8K, and I've seen so much bad 4K that I would have loved to have heard them talk about, we're doing enhanced dynamic range, we're doing full high dynamic range. We've got an image signal processor that can just trounce all these frames coming in and really make sure you get consistent color and consistent all these things. And they didn't say one word about the quality of the pixels, just kept hammering the quantity of the pixels.
Well, and they said, and you can share it with another Samsung phone user, but as far as I can tell, Samsung does not make an 8K screen.
They make an 8K television. They said you could beam it to.
Your television.
But that's an expensive television.
Yeah, nobody owns it.
Yeah.
8K is apparently like 5G. It's just another number and letter.
It's nice to
for
like.
technology
I would like it to crop and to pan and zoom within. Like I would like 4K. A lot of people use 4K to make really, really good 1080p, and you can make really good 4K out of 1080.
So you're saying downsample the 8K.
Downsample it or crop in, like you could use it to do fake zooms, fake pans. But I don't know the bit rate. I don't know the quality of that 8K, and that's the part that I'd be really interested in. Because you have a lot of cameras, like real cameras that shoot really bad 4K. The number itself is meaningless.
Right.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, I had to laugh when I saw Forbes headline, iPhone 12 beats Galaxy S20. It's like, Ewan, what are you talking about? We don't.
I've lost them at local host, fortunately.
Holy cow. Go ahead.
No, I agree with Renee that the quality of the pixels are what we have to really look at, and how much detail we're getting, what's being made up, like what pixels are true pixels versus what pixels are being created.
What a camera bump. That is a crazy camera bump.
And how sharp it's going to be, and then again, exactly, the bandwidth is going to be a big issue, where if you're 8K at 20 megs a second is not that much. It's going to be very
go back to that.
Pixelated.
Stay on the pixels. So they're saying the ultra wide is 12 megapixels. The wide angle is 108 megapixels. The telephoto is 48 megapixels. That's all pixel binning, though. None of that. The only one that's native is 12.
You can get the 108 if you really want it. You can get it off the thing, but mostly it bins down to 12, I believe.
12 and 16. Although, interestingly, because they were talking about 9X, and they mentioned 108, which is coincidentally 9 times 12. So I think really they're 9X binning.
Yes.
Which
exactly that.
And the zoom that they showed was very fuzzy and soft. It's optical. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to
see. That's why for me, every time that Samsung has a product release, they have a bad track record of really wanting to make sure that they have a number that they can put on a slide that looks big, or a feature that demos well, that 2 or 3 weeks after you've bought it, you stop using it because it just doesn't work all that great. They were very, very early to have face recognition, but it was bad. You couldn't use it. They were very, very early to have they had features for keeping track of your pulse. It was really hard to use. You didn't want to use it. The list goes on and on and on and on. So I haven't tried it yet. They have a good reputation with cameras, but every time I see it's always for me that's interesting if it's true. Let's find out if it's true.
Those phones won't be out for a while. March 6th is the delivery date on those. What will be available, and I guess I'm going to have to go to a Best Buy at midnight Thursday, Friday, because I don't think just the way looking at how they're doing the pre-orders on this Z Flip, it looks like they're going to have very few of them. This, I think, is an interesting phone. The first folding screen. There's 2 ways you can go with a folding screen. One is to fold it out so it's iPad size. The other is to have it start at a billfold size and open it up so it's a normal phone.
One's a folding tablet, one's a folding phone.
Yeah, this is a folded up phone that opens up to a 6.7-inch phone. I think actually that's very compelling, especially since it's using a new feature of Android that lets the top half of the screen have a different contents than the bottom half, so that you almost get a mini little laptop kind of.
I wonder if they're hard to make, and that's why the availability is a little sketchy. I
suspect that's the issue. Yeah, so I'm gonna I am gonna try to get one of these for the weekend. Look, I'm just happy to see somebody do something different.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much potential in these folding screens across all devices. Just the idea of having a 17-inch screen laptop that I can simply fold and then carry in pretty much any bag that I want, even if I have to carry like another Bluetooth keyboard with me. That is fascinating to me. And a form factor like this new Samsung phone, it's fascinating. We, as a market, we really, really want these large screen phones for content, but the phones themselves are getting ridiculously large. And just like you said, Leo, it's kind of frustrating that every time that you see a device design come out and you don't see anything that evolves from that, you don't want to conclude that, oh well, the idea of a flat panel of glass with no buttons on it, that's phone perfection. We have perfected the user interface. We have perfected the relationship between humans and mobile technology. We don't have to do anything else on that. So when you have a device like this, where it's not only a small pocketable device that turns into a large phone, but having something that stands on your desk or on your table while you're enjoying your coffee.
I like that.
And
that's cool.
Exactly. And you have a permanent this picture that you're showing right now. Just it's the idea of you have a permanent a chat window, but the flat part is all the controls that you would want to be hitting with your fingers anyway. That is a wonderful idea. So I'm not going to be first in line to buy anything with a folding screen before, let's say, 2022.
Right.
But I'm glad that there are people who are excited about this to be, shall we say, early believers and buy largely untested unfield tested devices because it's going to be a while before they solve all these problems and make them durable. But I'm glad that Samsung is trying this, and they're as the kings of manufacturing, as the kings of we will build everything and then continue to sell the thing that sells. They are exactly the company that should be doing this.
I would caution though, like if I love these, I think these like humans just want to fold everything. It's the history of our technology. We fold wallets, we fold books, we fold tacos. We just want to fold things. It makes total sense.
We don't
super early.
We don't fold fitted sheets though.
Well, we try.
But like
that's the sad thing.
So I would.
That's true.
If you really want one of these phones, let like people like Leo, people like Nirav, who buys all. Right. Let them buy them, use them for a month. Make sure that they're really, because everyone loved the Motorola, it fell apart. Everyone loved the Galaxy Fold. Didn't do it. Just we're gonna get there. Just make sure someone else proves that we're there before you spend your money.
This is also not inexpensive. $1,400.
No.
The Flip.
Yeah, and it's the same. It's $100 less than the Razer Flip. The Razer, they had a disclaimer: bumps and fall, and what it was funny.
The screen came off the hinge right when you folded it.
Yeah, that's normal.
Gary
they said
rig everything.
There is a disclaimer with the Z Flip that what do they say? Because it's so small, I can't read it. But something like
minor creasing.
Minor creasing. Yeah. So that makes me nervous. They're not doing what the Fold and the Razer do, which is they do have a glass panel over it. Remember, that was the problem with the Fold, is everybody took the plastic screen protector off, and then it broke immediately. So this time it's a glass, probably a flexible glass cover on top of a.
But what Motorola did was they let the cover, like they had a thing inside that bulged out the screen when you folded it down to prevent the crease. And it looks like Samsung is doing the gap on the like you can see a visible gap again. So it doesn't look like they're doing much of that.
Yeah. It doesn't look like a chunky billfold either. It looks like what you would expect to be carrying in your pocket as a phone, let's say 9 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of early adopters that will get a lot of mileage out of it, showing it to their friends, being the cool kid at dinner. Or a party. And so I think that $1,400 for some people, that'll be worth it. But otherwise.
It's also taking a page from Apple's playbook because it's a fashion device. In fact, they even said there's a special Tom Brown edition which will be demonstrated tomorrow at New York Fashion Week.
Right.
So, and they had a lot of, it felt like the people showing the S20 were normal people, and then the people showing the Z Flip were all models. Right. That's really the market.
Go through an early adopter.
I was joking.
There might be a million people out there that'll buy it.
I was joking that in 5 years there'll be a Moto Bezel BZL that will just it'll be like a retro phone with a forehead and a chin, like the
thing you love the most, the bezel. It'll
be like the hipster bell-bottom phone.
And of course, Microsoft at the end of the year is going to do a dual screen couple of book-like devices, the Duo and the Flex, one Android, one Windows. That'll be an interesting product. Clearly, everybody seems to think that there's a market for this.
And they're separate screens, not like
those are separate, so there's no crease or anything.
But with the high level of interactability between, it's not just let's build two phones and put a hinge between them. There's a relationship between those two screens that lets you move things from one screen to another, to spread things between two screens. They just released a developer kit, including a emulation layer that kind of really shows off all the different modes that they have dictated and described for this. And it's an interesting time. This has always been something that just feels like it should work, and we just need somebody to try to make it. And I think that it's just not just the screen technology, but I'm just so glad that companies like Microsoft and Google are saying, we know that the technology is not here yet, but we are going to at least create a spec so that if a developer wants to create mobile double screen experiences, here is everything that it's all being supported. Here's everything you can do with it. So you have to do it's an opportunity when you don't have one company making all the hardware. I know it's something that Apple can't. There's no point in Apple doing it because they wouldn't be able to make the hardware as well. But this is why when Apple finally discovers that, thank you Motorola, thank you Samsung, thank you Microsoft for the 5 years of really terrible hardware for just the people who are super excited about this, until the manufacturing figures out how to make these things, the engineering on how to make these things durable, and the software to figure out how an interface should work. Now we're going to jump in and we're going to basically clean up the market, because we're going to have the first one that really, really works out of the box.
They don't mention
there's also a big
battery life on it, and I have a feeling with
it'll be two cells, right? One on the top, one on the bottom.
It's not going to be.
It must be so good they didn't want to brag about it. That's the only reason.
The other thing,
why.
though, that's important to remember with these marketing things, though, is that Samsung essentially has nation-state level funding. They have an unlimited supply of money, and they make money making everything from toilets to oil rigs to everything.
Right.
And the amount of money they make from phones is really insignificant. Like, it's not like they can lose money on every phone, but they could lose money on every phone. Where Apple has so much invested in the iPhone, they just can't experiment. Like, they financially cannot experiment to the extent that conglomerates.
So you wouldn't expect a folding phone from Apple anytime soon?
I expect they have a ton of prototypes. I just don't think they'll launch it until all these early gen problems are solved.
Right, if ever. All right,
I heard they were doing it with the iPhone 4. They already had a folding prototype for the iPhone 4, but they thought it wasn't workable.
Yeah. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, if this was running iOS, I would buy one right now.
Yeah, it's cute, isn't it?
It looks good. It looks fun.
Yeah.
It definitely is like I could imagine this version of a folding phone, the type that folds down into a square. That's the design of the future. I could see that happening. Yeah. I think, it harkens back to our love of the flip phone of so long ago, but also has like new technology involved in it. So it's the best of both worlds, and I think young people are going to be really excited about it. I see that design going somewhere for sure.
By the way, no Samsung device now has a headphone jack. That's it. It's over. They
changed it so fast.
We all have courage now, baby.
Well, the headphone jack is like that camera bump. You have to have that first phone that has it and see if the entire world rebels against it. Right. And if the entire world rebels against it, suddenly your engineering department says that, how we've been compromising our cameras because it was absolutely anathema to have a camera bump? Guess what? Bars open, boys. Bars open, girls. We're going to be able to bump out things and start creating 48 megapixel cameras with flashes built in. Well,
and another line crossed. None of the Samsung phones they showed today are less than $1,000. Yeah. Now, Samsung has many other less expensive models, but so they don't have to worry. Apple has less expensive models too,
and the light ones too, right? Those just came out.
The
Note Light and the.
It feels like Apple might have decided they maybe went too far on the price point, and they've kind of dialed it down a little bit, but not Samsung.
I think it'll be interesting to see. I think that Apple could go both directions, where they make less expensive phones and more expensive phones than what they have right now.
Yeah, but also
the US is 5G only, and that's a tax on top of every phone that you buy, even if you don't have 5G in your area.
That's just nuts because most areas don't, and even the areas that do, the 5G is unimpressive.
Right.
Yeah,
it doesn't make that much of a difference.
It's not going to be a thing for another 2 or 3 years, if then. I think it's going to be a marketing thing until proved otherwise.
Like I said, 8K, 5G. It
follows
along the line of
so
3D.
Bored.
I guess anything with a number and a letter you should eschew.
No, because independent testing agencies have proven that 8 is a larger number than 5.
They were trying to make the case for it, and they couldn't. Like, the guy looked so bored, but he was basically talking about 5G as if no one had ever had an internet connection before.
Yeah.
Like, they'll be able to upload a video. Like, nobody could ever upload a video. And they don't have compelling. It's the same as the Verizon Super Bowl ads. They don't have any idea what the use cases are going to be yet.
Right. All right, let's take a little break. Then we have some actual Apple news. I promise you. But first, a word from FreshBooks, our sponsor. FreshBooks is an amazing thing for anybody who's a small business or freelancer. You know that the end of the month when you have to put those invoices together are always, at least they were for me, the worst time of the month. I hate doing that. But if you don't send invoices, you don't get paid. When I found FreshBooks, and this was some time ago, it changed my life. Let FreshBooks change your life. They make it easy to stay in the black without seeing red. And that's not just another ad sales pitch. It's a genuinely easy to use invoicing, expensing, books managing tool. It does all your accounting for you without actually doing any accounting. At least you don't feel like you are. 24 million people now have used FreshBooks. 4.5 out of 5 stars on GetApp. Small business owners really love it because it lets you focus on the thing you love doing, the thing you started the business to do, and spend less time invoicing and expensing, tracking your hours. They've saved users almost 200 hours a year on average. Create client profiles, enable automation for recurring invoices. I love that feature. You can watch as FreshBooks automatically combines expenses, billable time, and other items into invoices to send to clients on your behalf. You don't even have to do anything on your part. Whatever your business, whether you're a freelance photographer, a carpenter, if you're a podcaster, choose the FreshBooks plan that's right for you. Use their accounting and reporting tools to file your taxes. Evaluate your financials to help to find the money to hire new employees. I never knew whether I was making money or not until tax time rolled around. Now you'll know all the time exactly where you stand, because simply by doing invoices, importing expenses, keeping track of invoices received, you're doing the bookkeeping. But it does all the fiddly bits, so you don't have to worry about it. And by the way, it doesn't just send invoices. You can also stop chasing after the money when the clients don't send you the money. Enable online payments. That makes it easier for them to pay. Credit cards and ACH, U.S. only. On average, FreshBooks users get paid twice as fast, because it turns out clients don't like paying bills anymore than you like sending them. And if you make it easy to pay them, they just say, all right, pay them. Just get it out of my hair. You'll get notifications when clients open your invoices, so there's no more, oh, I didn't get it, send it again. And FreshBooks will automatically send gentle or not so gentle late payment reminders and bill late fees. They just make it easy to do. It really takes the pain out of invoicing, out of bookkeeping. It's just a simple, intuitive tool for any small business owner. And of course, if you ever have a question, you want a little help, they've got the best award-winning support team based right there at the FreshBooks headquarters in Toronto, and they're always happy to help. They're nice Canadians ready for your call. Get back to what actually matters most to you, growing a business. And by the way, because they're in Canada, I really appreciated this too, because I had to do it in Canadian dollars. I was billing Rogers. They do every currency, and the conversions are automatic, so you don't have to even think about that. Make running your small business so much easier with FreshBooks. Save time. Plan for the future. Visit freshbooks.com/MacBreak. All you have to do to help us, put the words MacBreak Weekly in the How Did You Hear About Us section. You'll get 30 days. Celebrate our 700th anniversary, our 700th show, by going to freshbooks.com/Mac. 700. Freshbooks.com/MacBreak. Enter MacBreak Weekly. And you'll get 30 days free from FreshBooks. Thank you, FreshBooks. Thank you for supporting us. We didn't have ads for the first 400 episodes. So.
Yeah.
Who thought?
What is the anniversary gift for 700? Is it dirt? Because we're old as dirt.
We're old as dirt. Teeth.
It's unobtainium.
Yeah. I feel that's a pretty good number. Mm-hmm. I mean, we do, roughly 50 a year.
And only 6 years from now, we'll get to do we'll have our 1,000th show.
And you'll be hosting it at that point.
I love the Galaxy S100. It's amazing.
I'm thinking I got about 5 more years than that.
6. You got to do 6.
I got to do 6. I got to get.
You got to get to 1,000.
Yeah. I think I get to twit 1,000.
I think you get to max.
Steve Gibson's already said he only has room for 3 digits, so he's not going past 999.
Y2K bug is removing our best hosts.
Let's get to chat room. Figure out for me, when's the 1,000th? If we continue to do, we do 52 because we do the holidays and everything. If we continue to do 52 a year. What date will the 1,000th episode be? 300 episodes from now. Yeah, 6 years, a little less. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was booking a cruise right after that.
It'll be right at the end.
I'm out of here now, man.
It'll be right at the end of 2026, right? Or right at the very end.
So
we're going to end that year.
I was saying for a while that there's this round the world cruise I want to take January 2025. But if I have to go to 2026, all right.
There you go.
Break time is over. Cruise time is starting.
They just sailed on the Viking has the world's longest round the world cruise. I think you're gone 8 months, something like that.
Wow.
And of course, with the coronavirus, you may never come home. You could be gone for years.
You might be stuck in a port forever.
Nobody's going on cruises anymore. You realize that, right?
Oh my gosh.
Because
nobody's going to MWC anymore.
Yeah.
Because you can't get off it.
By the way, that's going to be a big deal. I wonder if this becomes the death knell for conferences. Mobile World Congress, Sony says we're not going. Number of press conferences have been canceled. LG's not going. Yeah. I think people are very nervous, and you don't need to get together in meet space anymore to announce a product. Look what Samsung just did to tell people everything you're doing. They did this before Mobile World Congress. They don't need to go to Mobile
We've definitely
World Congress.
I mean, a lot of the shows that I worked on, there's definitely a trend of smaller shows with more broadcast, and so that there is a power to having everybody there.
It's good for you.
It's good for me.
Somebody's got to do the broadcast.
But but that's where and also breaking those events up. So you have 6 events around the world, but you're not trying to bring people in from all over the world. You're bringing the Northeast to New York and the West Coast to San Francisco, and you're not trying to have everybody. It hasn't made sense for a long time. It's just that
guess we'll
the
see
event
with IFA too.
folks can't figure out how to do it.
Currently, we're waiting for GSMA, which puts on the Mobile World Congress, to decide. But they say by the end of the week, they may cancel it.
Which is crazy.
Although that report got disputed, and then they no commented it hard. So it's.
I think they want to leave that open, but they don't want to tell people, "Hey, we're thinking about it."
I don't even know how they manage that, because if I understand correctly, well, not only that, it's the way they do the hotels. A big part of their revenue is the hotels.
They buy up those rooms
buy
ahead
up
of time.
all the hotels, all the hotel rooms, and then they resell them at a huge profit. And so, but they're stuck with the hotel rooms.
All
those. That could be tens of millions of dollars.
It could be business ending for them.
Yeah.
There has to be less legal liability to putting on a Mobile World Congress that nobody attends than canceling. I'm not even kidding. It's like I have seen this play out before, where you wonder, wow, why do they even bother doing this? And the reason why is because they were way too deep into commitments before they realized this is not a viable thing to do. So
AT&T has announced it's pulling out. Intel just announced they're pulling out. MediaTek, Cisco, Sprint have all pulled out of Mobile World Congress.
TCL.
It is not looking good right now. You know what a bullet we dodged? Lori Gill, you and I were at CES.
I was thinking about that.
I'm walking around CES, and at the time I was noticing, wow, there are a lot of Chinese companies here. There are a lot of Chinese people. I thought that's great. It really shows how interdependent we all are. Had a few of them been carrying coronavirus, and coronavirus started in October or November. It could have easily happened. That could have been a disaster zone.
Well, and it'll be interesting to see how between the Apple or the America or U.S. China trade issues, then combined with coronavirus, you have a lot of suppliers have to be thinking about, we shouldn't have our entire pipeline in one country. And so I think that we could see, factories popping up in other parts of the world to start to diversify risk.
So Foxconn was going to reopen yesterday. Their biggest plants, one has been banned from reopening by the government.
They're now making masks.
The second is 10% staffed. And you sound like you're joking, but they are in fact making masks at Foxconn.
2 million a day or something like that.
It's interesting. I'm not sure why people are so concerned about coronavirus. There haven't been that many cases, and the mortality rate hasn't been as bad as some other illnesses.
Well, the mortality rate
they don't know because they can't accumulate the data. They don't have the tests. They don't have the data. Nobody actually knows what the real numbers are. They're telling people to just go home.
It's an abundance of caution, as opposed rather than taking the chance.
The fatality rate is much higher than the flu.
It is higher,
like 100 times.
Okay.
So I think the flu
also on Chinese social media, people are openly suspicious of the numbers that the government is providing the people about the spread of the virus, what's happening, and the Chinese government is trying to deeply, deeply contain this by really stomping down all rumors. Sometimes it is rumors, but this is not a government that is averse to playing with the facts if it's a problematic fact.
So it's an abundance of caution rather than information.
Well, still a lot of people have died.
700, something like that. 1,000. Okay, that's in China. There'll be 30 or 40,000 in the U.S. alone that'll die of flu this year. So,
but
it's not that it's
much higher number.
Flu is more dangerous, but
it's a very small percentage,
and maybe coronavirus doesn't spread as easily.
Well, the other issue is that the coronavirus, theoretically, if you can get ahead of it, doesn't become a seasonal virus. The flu is not something we can stop from happening. The coronavirus is still in a position where it's not big; it's still small. But it's
only one coronavirus. Like there's SARS is a coronavirus, and there's a whole bunch of other.
Well, the flu.
And they were able to contain SARS.
The influenza is a coronavirus.
And this one is like a new strain, and they haven't really.
They don't know what's going to happen, if it's going to mutate. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like if the Chinese government didn't overreact the way it is right now, there'd be a lot of people around the world who were accusing them of not reacting enough. So the overabundance of precaution, I think, is better for everyone because it's safer. And if they just kind of pretended like it wasn't that bad, but then it did end up getting that bad, that would look bad.
Ming-Chi Kuo, who of course is an analyst and writes analyst notes for his investor clients, said that was talked a little bit about the consequences of this. Foxconn plants closing. He says that the Zhengzhou plant, which is the most critical iPhone production site, focused on iPhone 11, SE2, and iPhone 9. Was scheduled to resume work February 2nd. It's been delayed, and I think delayed again. In Shenzhen, they make the next generation phones, the 2020 phones. He says the development team did not stop work for the Chinese New Year holiday. This must be the small phone, the successor to the SE, that's supposed to come out in March, right? The rest of the plant was scheduled to come back on February 10th, but that has also been postponed. That was yesterday. Pegatron's Shanghai plant, also making iPhone 11s and the new 2020 phone, resumed work February 3rd in Shanghai. And their Kushan plant is scheduled to resume work on February 10th, but that's been delayed. So basically all he says is there are still many uncertainties, but I think you could expect that you're going to see shortages of a lot of these products.
And there's so many Apple people who go there every day and who haven't been going in weeks, and they're usually there to oversee all of the ramp-ups for the various design and testing phases.
Even when they reopen, there's going to be a delay getting back to work.
Yeah, and even unpredictability just as a thing can be as corrosive to business as an actual thing itself.
Yeah. Well, we'll just have to keep watching this and stay safe. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Wear a mask. Whatever else you need to do.
Don't cavort with bats or snakes.
Don't cavort. Yeah, I was reading something that said part of the reason this is a problem is because bats have an incredibly aggressive immune system.
Their heartbeat goes up to 1,000 beats.
They're really good at fighting infection. So anything that survives in a bat,
right,
is bad news. Bad news. Apple has added universal. You're going to have to explain this to me, Renee. What does this mean? Universal purchases for iOS, tvOS, and macOS apps. This is part of Xcode 11.4. The beta just came out.
So when Apple introduced the iPad, they introduced the concept of universal binaries, and that meant that you could have an iPhone interface and an iPad interface in the same app. So you bought that app, and if developers chose, they could make them separate, but if they chose to make one app, you download it on your iPhone, it would run the iPhone app. You download the same binary on your iPad, it would run the iPad app. When tvOS came out, they introduced the idea of bundles. It wasn't the exact same app. It was a different binary, but developers could choose to make an app bundle. And that meant that if you bought the iPhone or iPad version, the iOS version, it would unlock the Apple TV version or vice versa for you. So you bought it on one store and it unlocked it on the other store for you. And now they're extending that to the Mac. It's not just Catalyst apps either. It's any app on the App Store. It does have a lot of caveats on the developer side, but for customers, it just means that if I buy, I don't want to throw Greg under a bus here, but if I buy Drafts on iOS and he chooses to support it, I'll go to the Mac App Store, look for Drafts, and instead of seeing buy now, I'll just see download now because that got unlocked.
That's a good example, though, because Greg makes drafts for macOS, iOS, watchOS. I don't think there's a TV version yet.
Don't tempt him, Leo. It's like James Thompson would already have the TV version done.
But it's up to the developer to say, okay, I'm going to make this universal or not. The purchase.
And there's two big caveats there. One is that they would technically have to bundle the app ID, and that would just shred the existing app. If they have an existing app, that would destroy the history, everything pertaining to that original app. And they'd be starting over with essentially like the same app, but a new version of the same app. And a lot of people love their reviews and love the history of the app and all those things. But also you're once again asking a developer to take less money for additional work. Right. And it's fine if you think the Mac version is worth $40 and you get all of them together. But if you only use an iPhone and suddenly your calculator app is $40 because you also get a Mac app you're never going to use, then they start thinking about subscriptions. So it's going to be a lot of things for a lot of developers to weigh.
Yeah, I can see that. And so this doesn't make it easier to make a universal app. This just makes it easier to sell a universal.
Yes, to give it away for free if you buy the other.
And according to Apple, if you make a Catalyst app with 13.4 in mind, it will be defaulted on the universal purchase. I guess that makes sense because Catalyst is just a technology for making an iOS app run on Mac. Yeah. They'll have the same bundle identifier and so forth. So
it's fine as long as they don't force developers to make choices that they think are not in the best interest for their users.
Right.
And it punishes the early adopters, of course, a little bit because they've already put out their Catalyst apps, and now they have to consider whether they're going to obliterate them and make the new bundled app.
Well, those users have been punished enough.
Kernel extensions, always a bad idea. They deprecated those some time ago. Release of macOS Catalina introduced an alternative, something called system extensions. And with the release of 10.15.4, it'll be goodbye kernel extensions, hello system extensions. Again, to Renee Ritchie to tell us what the hell the difference is.
Yeah, I love this so much. Like, I know it's going to be a huge pain for several categories of apps. Some of them I don't care about, like antivirus apps.
I have always avoided KO files because I don't want to modify my kernel. And anytime I see a program that says, oh, you're going to have to install this KEXT, and I just say, yeah, maybe not. Maybe not.
Well, you don't want it to because they get to write the rules.
They get ring zero access. They get the system level
and
access.
That means that like you cannot enforce any policies on them because they get to decide what the policy is. So if they just if they are malware, there's nothing is going to protect you because the malware is suddenly running things. So what this model does is it takes all of those things out of kernel space and puts them in user space. It has system extensions, driver kit, a whole bunch of things that keeps developers out of the kernel and gives them a space where they can safely make their apps.
So there's not in theory, no third party will be able to make anything that runs in kernel mode, in ring zero mode. Everything will run in user space except specific Apple products.
Yeah, and those are all code signed, and they check every stage of the boot up for those.
Careful. Yeah.
And there's no downside to this. Anybody who's using the biggest hit is going to be people who are using really old hardware that absolutely will not work without a kernel level extension, or it's old and the KEXT is not being updated and into a system level extension. But those people are probably going to be using older Macs anyway, and they will still be able to download and install older versions of the macOS. Apple doesn't make it easy to find, but they're there in the support webpage. So there's no downside to this. It's long overdue, and there's nothing that there's nothing that makes my teeth tingle so much as when I'm installing a piece of software and says your Mac needs to restart after this installation, saying it doesn't have to if I don't install you. Yeah. This suddenly becomes I want fingerprints, I want your social security number, I want everything to know about every developer who ever worked on this before I will let you install a KEXT.
ZDNet has a good interview with Patrick Wardle. He's the Jamf principal security researcher and has written a lot of Mac security tools we've recommended before. He says, this is basically a good thing. The downside is, well, the old days of having a Mac that you could completely control and completely modify are gone, and macOS is more now like iOS. But I think for end users, that's a good thing. And Wardle, who writes a lot of security tools, is happy with the system extensions. He says there's some great user mode frameworks that provide third-party security tools, the capabilities they need. So he's able to still write his tools without having to be a kernel extension. So I think that's encouraging.
My guess, Jamf probably had some input. I
hope so. They do a lot of stuff.
Deep in if they're saying that it's going to work, I think it's probably a good sense of it.
He said third-party kernel extensions pose a juicy attack vector.
Yes.
so no more.
But that would be the company that would probably be one of the few companies that would really go crazy if it wasn't working.
Because they do customization for enterprise users.
Big enterprise installs.
A lot of management.
If they needed it, if they can get done what they need to get done, I think that we're in pretty good shape.
Typically, antivirus uses it, firewalls, VPN clients. Drivers probably use it, USB drivers and others.
They have driver kit now.
So you can do it drivers even. So, and also I would think it'll make the system more stable, not merely more secure, but more stable.
No, I agree.
So I often look for the dark lining to any silver cloud, but in this case, it's hard to say that this is not a.
One less reason to want to do a clean install reformat clean install every year. So
you got to pat Apple on the back. It's hard to take an existing legacy operating system, especially one that's 40 years old, and make it secure. That's one of the reasons mobile operating systems are more secure. They're newer.
Right.
But Apple has done a great job with OS X of moving it into the 21st century. And I think Gatekeeper and this are huge steps forward. It's one of the reasons you don't really need an antivirus on macOS. Unless you'd install that stupid fake Flash thing.
Social engineering, phishing, all that kind of stuff is still a huge vector. Yeah. And it's more now because Mac is a more economical target for hackers than it used to be.
It's
yeah, but Apple is. I think that this is one of the benefits they have of their relationship with customers. I do think that their version of two-factor authentication is such a pain in the butt by default, where I'm expecting to get a text on my phone. Instead, I have to dig out my iPad because it's looking for another Apple authenticated device. But the thing is,
more
it's
secure.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. It's easy. It's given that it's so easy to spoof, to get someone to create a new SIM card for you if you want to do something bad to a specific target. It's like I begrudgingly say, okay, I suppose in the name of not having my bank accounts, my Bitcoin cleaned out. Okay, thank you, Apple.
Yeah. I do, and I have to say, moving away from 32-bit apps has been somewhat painful.
Yes.
A surprisingly large number of apps, even though they've had years to prepare, are just not prepared.
I think that's part of the problem. Like, they gave them literally 10 years, and I think nobody, like, if they'd given them a year,
maybe
they have the same programmers, they would have all done it immediately. But now, like, for the games, they're saying, like, the people who worked on those games, they're not there anymore. There's just nobody's left to port those games. Yeah.
And I have a sense that some of the ones that I know that I have, I still have, my laptop is still on Hobby.
Upgraded.
I can't, because I have an app that I absolutely need, and it costs $6,000 to replace it.
It bit us
and there's
yesterday.
there's no other Mac I use a thing called Mac Captions, which is kind of industrial strength captioning tools, to fix all the captions and export them to different formats. And there's only one Mac program that does that. Telestream makes this thing called Mac Captions, and it's still on 32-bit. Yep. They haven't told me why they haven't upgraded, but they have a big warning when you go to buy it. Hey, this hasn't been upgraded. And I think that it's because they haven't sold enough of them. They're looking at the math. They're looking at how much it's going to cost to fix it, and how much, they're looking at does this make sense to keep moving forward.
There's an accounting package a lot of people use. They said, we'll never be 64-bit. That's it. Bye-bye.
A lot of audio plugins, too.
Yeah.
But I think that comes down to how many, they're just looking at how many did they sell, and how many are they, there's no upside. There's no trajectory for it.
We use a check scanner for check deposits from a bank, big bank, well-known bank, national bank. And it turns out as soon as you install Catalina, it stops working.
Yeah.
And Lisa spent all day yesterday, figuring out a workaround.
Just in case you're wondering, Aperture stopped working.
Yeah. Well, this is why you can't you don't know the situation for each developer. Just like Alex said, it costs money to keep a coding operation up and running. And if you have only limited number of expertise and limited number of hours, you can either invest those hours into creating features that your users want, or you can invest those hours in creating and dealing with 64-bit, which is a feature that you don't think is going to hit you in the neck for another few years at least. And the other part of this is that in the last 2 or 3 years, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with developers where they're trying to do the right thing, and they've been told and warned, hey, we have to make sure you make things work with 64-bit, and they're trying to, but Apple keeps giving them contradictory answers. And I'm not talking about they're searching for information on a website, and one web page from Apple says one thing, another web page says another. I'm saying they have long-term relationships with people inside developer support, and they keep getting, when they make a complaint saying, hey, but you broke this thing that I need to make my app work, you broke this in the latest release. And 2 weeks later, you get a response that we don't consider this a problem. You need to update your apps for 64-bit. And when you say back, well, I am trying to, but I can't because this thing that you gave me as a replacement for this 32-bit code that I was relying on does not work anymore. And so it's a terrible, terrible situation for developers to be in. And I just wish that Apple were not so cavalier at times about the difficulties of making your app continue to work in 2020.
Speaking of two-factor, Apple has joined the FIDO Alliance, which is, I think, really good news. FIDO, which stands for Fast Identity Online, is an industry association including Google, Amazon, Samsung, PayPal, that supports hardware keys. Yubico, it makes FIDO-compatible keys. And this is really good news because that's probably the most secure way you can
death to passwords. Death to all passwords.
Yeah, that would be nice. And I carry a FIDO U2F.
I just keep thinking of the Canadian carrier. It takes my brain 3 seconds every time to realize you're not talking about the Rogers sub-brand FIDO.
FIDO was founded, I didn't know this, in 2013 by a group including Lenovo and PayPal. to address the lack of interoperability among strong authentication. Mac generation, the first to spot Apple's logo added to the list of members. So, welcome, Apple. Honest.
Today, Apple invents security.
Our show today, if you're into technology, you're into IT, you may even work in IT, maybe you want to work in IT. Our show today brought to you by IT Pro TV, the way to get into IT, to polish your IT skills, to get the most up-to-date IT training, and in an engaging and fun way. As a busy working professional, it can always be tough to learn new skills or make a career change. IT Pro TV has made learning IT and getting those IT certifications that help you get that job possible. In your spare time, you can learn quickly at your own pace whenever you've got a moment, because IT Pro TV works on your computer, on your tablet, on your big screen TV. They have Roku apps and Apple TV apps, iOS and Android apps. Binge-worthy learning for IT professionals, and their content's always fresh. Look at that, more than 4,000 hours of training videos for 288. Oh, actually, that's the certifications held by ITV Pro trainers. 288, 160,000 members strong now, and I know a lot of IT Pro TV's members came to IT Pro TV from us, and we're thrilled about that. We love IT Pro TV. We went out, Lisa and I, to their beautiful new Gainesville studios. They opened those a couple of years ago. 6 high-def studios, providing you with training for everything you need to know in the IT field. Look at the guy wearing the cheese head. That's crazy. I gather he's from Green Bay. There's Don Pezzett, one of the founders. Don's a great guy, along with Tim Broom, the other founder. They were IT trainers. They decided there would be a better way. Cherokee's great, too. I love her. They decided there's got to be a better way to teach people these skills. All these people are from the field, but they're also great entertainers. And that's really what's important. You'll enjoy it. You'll have fun. The latest exam objectives, new certifications, updated software releases, redesigned interfaces, and more. And by the way, they're a partner. They're the official video training partner for CompTIA. So if you're looking for that A+, or the Network Plus, or Security Plus cert, they've got the on-demand courses to get you the certs you need to get the job you want. See how IT Pro TV can make it easy for you to grow your career. Go to itpro.tv/MacBreak, itpro.tv/MacBreak. By the way, let me tell you, there's a secret offer code, MacBreak30, that gets you 30% off as long as you stay a member. 30% off forever. itpro.tv/MacBreak. Again, the secret word is MacBreak30. IT Pro TV. Build or expand your IT career. Enjoy the journey. We love you, IT Pro. Tim and Din. Tim and Don are great guys, and we always enjoy it when they come out and visit. We love visiting them, and it's just a great company. itpro.tv/MacBreak. Did you write this, Renee? Whoa, France, take it easy. Wow, you're out of control. Finding Apple 55 minutes of revenue for secretly slowing down iPhones. Maniac! Well, it's Thomas Claiborne from the Register. Yeah, I don't even, is that even a word, maniac?
And the French song during Samsung today, I was dead. I just need people to do better French in technology.
French, please. It is a big fine on the surface of it, 25 million euros. This is something that Apple copped to. Remember the brouhaha? They slowed the phones down if the battery was old. Their premise was, by the way, completely credible, which is this: because the battery is weak, if the phone starts doing a lot of work, it not only could it burn out the battery, but it could crash the phone, and we don't want that to happen.
And I think that what was happening before is I had older phones that had, that obviously had been charged many, many times, and you get to like 40% and just know it's going to turn off. Like, it just got to a point where it was the phone.
They didn't want to get the iPhone operating a situation where the battery was so low,
right, where a spike in demand would shut down the phone to protect the battery.
Yes, that's just not. However, they copped to it. That's why they offered that great battery replacement program for very little money. My mom took advantage of it. It was a great deal. But apparently the French have now gotten around to this a couple of years later, and they fined him $27.4 million. That's 55 minutes of revenue. shocking. Apple, I'm sure, will just say, okay, fine.
It's not a bad decision because
I
a
love
lot
it.
of these, there's a bunch of spurious lawsuits, but a lot of these are about, this is about the communications. And if you could fault Apple for anything here, they did the right thing technologically, but they did not communicate it anywhere nearly an effective way.
Yeah, communication would have solved this, right?
And part of the things they fixed were not just the replacement program, but also making that an actual serviceable option, and making sure people know exactly what's happening with their phones due to the age of their battery.
Yeah. Took the French 2 years to figure that. They investigated for 2 years. I don't really have much of a problem with this. It's a small fine, not insignificant, but a small fine.
Apple peels a couple bills off the outside of the roll.
And yet, I think they'll do better from now on.
I think they need to have a button that just says age gracefully or die quickly, and then you just decide which one you want your battery to
That's
do.
kind of what they do now.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Essentially what
they
they
can
do.
say that. They just,
But it's still a valuable move. The government gets to assert that they have the right to impose fines.
Right.
That we can basically tell you what you can and cannot do with your technology inside our borders with our citizens. And it also establishes a ground floor or precedent so that if they get upset with Apple again, they can use that existing. Hey, Apple admitted to this. We fined them, and obviously that wasn't enough. So now we have to put the hurt on them even greater. There's a lot of this going on in the EU right now, where it seems like an insignificant fine, but you remember that the precedent to Facebook getting a $5 billion judgment against it by the Justice Department was a real slap on the wrist, a simple we agree to go forth and sin no more. Once you've let this person skate on probation the first time, it means you get to lock them up the second time.
Good news for Android users. Yay! You can now log on to iCloud.com in your browser, which means if you're using iCloud, you're not locked out either on your browser or on your mobile.
I actually don't understand. But
in the
it was
past,
a dumb lockout. It was mobile. Yeah. It would just detect the mobile site and then freak out. And if you told it to load the desktop site instead, you were fine. But that's an annoying user experience.
Something you can't necessarily do in every browser either. So that means you can use notes, you can use photos, you can use reminders, you can use Find My iPhone from a mobile device without having to switch to desktop mode.
It's an acknowledgement that a lot of people don't have the choice of using an iPhone that their company issues them like an Android phone. So yeah, this is why they really need to extend and embrace where it's practical to. So I'm glad to see this.
They used to make an iCloud. Well, I called it iDrive or something. What do they call it? What was the Apple name?
There was an iCloud assistant for Windows for a long time.
They don't make that anymore, or did they?
No, they're still making it. They're still making it. They're still updating it. I know because I got an alert. It was so guys, and I'm sorry, people. It was so nostalgic because the pop-up saying, "Oh, there's an update for iCloud on my Lenovo." And it's like, oh my God, it's like the 2005 Apple user interface where you see the way that we used to always see like a request for updates. So it was an exciting piece of what kind of music would I listen to in 2002? Were all of the Star Wars prequels out yet? But yes, they're still updating it. They're still at least keeping it up to date.
I'm sure that it'll work about as well as the iTunes says on.
Oh, God. By the way, after, Renee, you talked to us about the confusion over encryption with iCloud backup and stuff, I just decided I turned off iCloud backup on my phone. I got a USB-C to lightning cable, and I backed up my iPhone to my laptop. And actually, there was a little pain point because they've changed this in Catalina. Nothing pops up. I thought, is music going to pop up? What's going to happen when I plug them? Nothing happens. You open the Finder, and lo and behold, one of your Finder items is now your iPhone. And once you open that, you get that same interface. I clicked the box that says, make sure it's encrypted, gave it a strong password, and backed it up to my laptop, which is then backing up to the cloud. And that makes me feel a lot better because now it's encrypted. With trust no one encryption on my Mac, and even though it's in the cloud, it's
although didn't we find out today that the CIA has been backing the world's biggest encryption company?
Oh, wasn't that interesting?
For decades.
What a story that was!
Like since Iran hostages, since the Falkland Islands War.
Yeah.
Since the 40s.
Crypto AG. Yeah, it goes back to the World War II.
Yeah.
The intelligence that was billed by the Washington Post as the intelligence coup of the century. For decades, more than half a century, a company called Crypto AG, which got started making code-making machines for U.S. troops during World War II, was owned by the CIA. It was a, quote, Swiss firm,
and this was
sold encryption equipment to 120 countries well into this century, including Iran, military juntas in Latin America, India, Pakistan, even the Vatican, secretly owned by the CIA in partnership with West German intelligence. They were rigging the devices, each and every one of them, so that they could break the codes. They could read. Geez Louise. This underscores what I've always said. No crypto is safe unless it's open source. You have to know. You have to be able to, and Matthew Green from Johns Hopkins and other crypto experts have to be able to look at that code and say, this is doing what it says it does and nothing else.
And even then, it's like mostly safe. Maybe.
Mostly safe. But any binary blob that's doing crypto or machine,
well, and a lot of this, most people didn't have any way to analyze it in the up until more recently. So it was very hard for them to see what was going on.
Incredible. The NSA controlled every aspect of crypto's operation. Hiring decisions, technology decisions. They sabotaged its algorithms. They told it, here's who you should sell your next machine to. They monitored the Iran mullahs during the hostage crisis. They fed intelligence about Argentina's military to Britain during the Falklands War. Holy cow.
It does make you a little like, how did we screw things up so badly when we had all this information?
Well, you know why? It was the Enigma problem, right?
Yes.
After Alan Turing cracked the Enigma machine, they couldn't use the intelligence they got because it would tell the Germans, we've cracked Enigma.
Right.
So it's kind of a catch-22. You can break the encrypted transmissions, but you can't use what you've learned.
Well, there's a lot of things
you have to be careful how you use it.
There's a lot of information that in the past that we haven't used because of that.
Yeah. We'll also never know how many third parties were able to crack this encryption because it was left somewhat open so that the United States could tap into it. And that's the other problem of whenever any government official tells you, well, the only person who has the other person who has the keys to decrypt the stuff on your phone is the government. And we're only going to do it under the direst of circumstances. Well, that's scary enough. But if anybody if one person with authority can get in and crack into your phone, potentially there are so many clever people out there who will find that exploit and use it and not tell anybody about it.
And I am going to take this story with a grain of salt. Despite known methods, FBI claims it still can't unlock the iPhones in the Pensacola case. It's sad. We now live in a world where you can't trust anything.
But there was a source that came out, I forget the name, but they said that they absolutely could and that it was the wrong hill for Barr to die on because it was widely known that they could get into those easily. And it was talking about Apple using hashes to find child pornography. There was a big report on that today on Forbes, not contributor network Forbes, actual Forbes on that, where they was because of a lawsuit, Apple detailed how they do that process, and it includes they look for the hashes. If they find like a strong evidence of the hashes, they have a human review it. Then they detail it to an organization that specializes in it, which then coordinates with the police. But they were saying that there's so much cooperation going on there. It was really dumb, sort of threaten that relationship with something that they could absolutely already do.
So I don't know whether to believe Christopher Wray. Or what? He is testifying before the House Judiciary Committee, so he's theoretically under oath. They remember that the shooter shot the iPhone, and Wray told the committee today that they'd reconstructed that iPhone, and it's currently the FBI is currently engaged with Apple, hoping to see if we can get better help from them so we can get access to that phone.
It's a checkmate phone. I mean, we don't have to believe anybody. It's a checkmated phone.
Yeah. I just that's the problem these days.
Again, they want the precedent. They want the pressure to have federal law that requires companies, come what may, to give the government and give law enforcement access to phones. They don't care about the shooter. They don't care about this case. They want the precedent.
Yeah, I agree with you. Apple Pay expected to see in the next couple of years some good results. This is
Not too bad.
Juniper Research, which keeps an eye on transaction markets, says they expect Apple will see global Apple Pay transactions of $686 billion by 2024. That's more than half of the market. More than half of the market. And I have to say, for all the, complaining and bitching about this and all that and saying how hard is it to get a credit card out, I do notice I use it more and more. That's the only time I ever pay at Whole Foods. I pay with my Apple Watch.
Well, I move money into my Apple Cash because at Whole Foods it's much faster. At places like that, it's like it's not ask. I know it's not going to ask me for a PIN. I know it's not going to ask for anything else.
It just goes okay.
If it's Apple Cash, it just goes. It's just gone, and it immediately is approved.
Well, Apple Card, same thing. It doesn't ask for anything more.
Yeah, so it's just super fast, and I think that
plus you get cash back.
Right, and I still think that
I always have cash in my Apple Cash account because of that.
Well, and it's still like magic money. Someone sent me a couple grand in Apple Cash, and it was just like this magic.
Somebody likes you.
Fund of we were trading back and forth. So
that's how it is with Venmo and me. I feel like somebody pays me with Venmo. That's not money. That's just credit.
It's just like you live in the cloud, and you just keep on, and eventually you run out of whiskey. So anyway, but I still think that the one inefficient point here, I mean, Apple has a credit card. Apple has the ability to do this. They're going to move that much cash. I still feel like eventually the inefficient point here is banks in general. I mean, Apple still could.
Might as well just replace that.
Might as well just give people a place to put their savings.
Oh, I'm blanking on it. Do you remember, Lori, they just got a new file format support today?
Oh, yeah, OFX. So you can export your transactions. Up until today, you could export them through a CSV file. Right. But, excuse me, but not all third-party finance apps support the CSV. So Apple just today updated to support the OFX, which is it's more open source. So most of the third-party financial and budgeting apps support that. So you can now export it that way and put it into like your, you need a budget or Mint or something like that. You can kind of you can put those transactions into those apps now.
Part of the reason that they expect a big growth in Apple Pay is the growth in Apple Watches. Wow. We just saw, now nobody knows how many watches Apple has sold. It's all kind of guesswork because Apple doesn't say, right?
No, but like Cybart and Horace Dejeff have figured it out pretty closely.
I just saw one. We talked about it earlier on iOS Today. I can't remember who it was. One of the strategic research companies said Apple sold 31 million Apple Watches in 2019, making it's larger than the entire Swiss watch market.
Right, all of them.
Like all of them
together.
Market. Yeah,
and the entire. And remember how people were saying, "Oh, this is just going to be great for Swatch. Apple's just going to get
beleaguered."
Yeah. No.
Well, I think that the thing for me is that it's not like I'm super excited about my Apple Watch, but I could never go back. To not.
Oh no, I don't.
Like that's the whole thing. Is I couldn't go back to a regular watch. I mean, that'd be absurd.
Yep.
So I think that is the hard part. I mean, you see people with regular watches, and you're kind of like, oh, you're being really retro. Like you're expecting them to have.
I will say,
I love my Apple Watch, and I don't wear any other watch anymore. This is the watch I wear.
And I had great watches before. I mean,
no, me too.
I have lots of. Navihawks.
I have a drawer of beautiful, expensive watches.
Yeah.
They're all been replaced. I can't do without this.
That said, developing an Apple Watch that can last more than a couple days on battery is still an important nut to crack. For me, well, I'm just saying for my own example, because I have lots of different wearables that I really, really like. No one less than the Apple Watch. But there came a day when yet again I needed to get out the door and look, as I often do, because again I got these hairy arms. And the band like kind of
winter arms.
Watch exactly. Well, again, as I say, I'm genetically built.
Harry
for
or
warfare,
Barry,
but Either way, there are communities that would prefer that as Barry. That's fine. I'll take all compliments. But just to make myself look a little bit less like an idiot. So oftentimes, if I'm like riding like all day, at some point I might take my watch off and just put it next to the keyboard, and then forget I put it there, and then I have to get out of the house the next day, and I forgot to recharge my watch. And after X days where this happened, and I just put on my Casio G-Shock watch that I bought like about 10 years ago, that so slowly became my daily default watch, simply because I never have to think about it. I just have to put it on.
There's
and
a couple of things wrong with this. One, you're wearing a watch to tell what time it is, which is insane.
Well, some of us like to be on time for things, Leo.
Okay, that's two. How hard is it to put your? I have one of those little iMac, rubber iMac things that they sold. That you put your Apple Watch in there.
Oh, those are so cute.
It's just automatic. I just whenever I take off the watch, that's where the watch lives.
My wrist is so cold without the watch on now. Like if I move around, I feel the air on my wrist, and it just says not normal, not normal. You're missing something.
And then the time is almost completely secondary. Although I do have to say, with Series 5, now that the time is always on, I appreciate it. But honestly, it's all the other things the watch does, including recording, drafts, timing,
timers,
activity.
I think I probably use timers more.
All that stuff is so great.
Well, okay, I'm glad you. I'm not saying that you're wrong for liking those things. I'm saying that
you're wrong.
I'm not. Well, again, I would love to be the sort of person that every single day at the end of the day goes from room to room, taking glasses and putting them in the sink and washing them and putting them away, and making sure that the socks aren't on the floor. They're in the hamper. Sometimes I will leave my watch someplace where I forget about it. And as to your other point, the great thing about my G-Shock is that when I'm like moderating panels like at Comic-Cons, I don't want to use the Apple Watch for that, because I press one button on this watch and it's a stopwatch. And when I need to check to see, how long are we going on time, it will always be a stopwatch when I look at it. I don't have to go through 8 pages of notifications and then turn off like the animated Pixar logo. So I'm saying that I'm not saying that the Apple Watch is problematic because it only lasts a couple days on battery. I'm saying that will be as big a success as it is. It will be an even bigger breakthrough when Apple figures out how to make the battery last long enough that forgetting to charge it overnight on a single night won't screw you for the rest of the day.
I just don't know why you haven't explained this to your valet and just have him pick it up every night and put it on the charger. That's what I do.
That's his sock darning time. If he doesn't keep my socks at fair neck,
Bixby should do it for you.
Strategy Bixby. They mentioned Bixby. I was shocked.
Don't say that word. Upwards of 3 devices will automatically trigger in the world.
It was Strategy Analytics that came up with this. 31 million units in 2019, a 36% jump over last year. The entire Switch watch industry, including Swatch and Tag Heuer, 21 million units, and they went down 13%. So clearly,
and have they said what the Android the Gear?
Oh, they're 0.1%. They're ridiculous. Kind of just, Samsung has a new watch. They didn't even mention it. It's like, they got the watch.
I think they're the best of those watches right now. I think the Tizen watches are doing way better than the Android Wear ones.
Google's pretty much abandoned Android Wear. They haven't done a new one for a while. And, Fossil makes the best Android Wear watches, but I can't imagine that's more than 1% of the market.
It's super interesting to me that Apple had made the iPhone, and then they moved that OS to tablets and now to watches. And Google has not been able to move Android successfully to tablets or watches. And Qualcomm is just it's so expensive to make watch silicon that they haven't been able to. It's sort of like a chicken and the egg problem. They're like, you're not making chips, you're not making bits, and it just keeps going back and forth.
Well, I also think that the Android market is very big, but I don't think that the consumer is the same type of consumer that necessarily wants to accessorize all their electronics together in the same way. The big chunk of it. There's definitely a large chunk of people who are buying Samsungs and getting high-end phones. But when we think about the Android market as a whole, a lot of those folks are just coming in to buy a phone. They're not and it happens to have Android on it, and they're not really buying it because of that. They're just buying it because it's cheaper.
This one's available in red. Great, I'll take. I want the red one. What is it? Operating system?
And it does Facebook.
Does it run Facebook? Don't care. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Andy,
I think.
Andy, is this your watch? Is this the watch you wear right here? Just out of curiosity.
That's still a very stylish and fashionable watch.
He said G-Shock, Leo.
Also, can I say I can swim in salt water with it. I can drop it off of a building. It's called the G-Shock for a reason, man.
Can swim in lava with it.
You will dig me up in dig up my grave in like 10 years after I die. It will still be running despite floods, despite my turning in my sleep.
Do you have to put a battery in it though, or does it just
every 3 years or 4 years?
I bought this.
Like that calculator
and by the way,
watch.
I bought it, and you can still get it. It's only $18.
The Dwight Schrute model.
The Dwight Schrute model. It has a little stylus in the side because your fingers can't press those buttons.
Oh, mine didn't have a stylus.
Can I say it's actually pretty cool. All of these vintage watches from like the 80s, it's not even like a retro line. They just kept making them. And I did buy the stainless steel version of like that gold watch you first show as a joke because it was like $13. And again, it's a watch that tells time. And I kind of liked it. For $12, I almost felt like I didn't want to have to think about whether I wanted to buy this. It's like I solved the problem of whether I want to own this or not. It's watches are such an interesting consumer choice. It's not necessarily features. It's not necessarily logic. There's just something about the design and the features of this particular model that's the one that kind of speaks to you. And again, for some reason, the G-Shock. And the G-Shock is the one for me. It does have Bluetooth. I can use an app to automatically have messages and whatever piped to it, but I never use it. And it has a nice patina on it where the plastic case has rubbed a little bit, so it's a little bit glossy. I was writing all day today, so of course my watch has been taken off. It's probably in the bedroom, but
I don't know. I look at this watch and I said, I look at it and I say, there's a guy who has sideburns. That's wearing
mine now.
That's what I. There you go. I see you have a nice strap. You got a little Baby Yoda face. You can't do that with a Casio.
Well, and I think what's interesting is that we went from, there was a lot of personality of what kind of watch you buy before the Apple Watch, where there were people who got the Citizen watches or the Seiko watches or the different whatever
Swatch.
that is. And then it just all went away. For a huge portion of the population, it's just and then we're just all going to have this watch.
Thank God. The best way to express my individuality is to have the same watch as everybody else. Thank you, Apple. I am so much more blessed now.
But you can now choose your watch face. Except that you
Thank
can't
you for
make
allowing
one
me to
on your
choose
own.
5 different watch faces, Apple.
What?
Together but different. What's the Android slogan? I forget.
Yes,
Different together.
Different together.
Different together.
The worst slogan, by the way, ever. Makes no sense at all. Judge has approved the T-Mobile merger, throwing out the state attorney's general case against T-Mobile and Sprint merging.
So silly. I mean,
there is one final hurdle, I think. The California,
how high the rate hikes will be?
The judge said we can't be sure it'll be bad for competition, so I'm not going to.
No, there's no such thing as history. Time is in an instant. There's no way of looking back.
Because I am a robot who was just booted up 10 seconds ago and was not given access to the internet.
It does sound like a robot.
I have no reason to believe.
Listen to this. This is what Judge Victor Marrero wrote. The resulting stalemate leaves the court lacking sufficiently impartial and objective ground on which to rely on basing a sound forecast of the likely competitive effects of a merger.
I got an email from Bell Canada 2 days ago saying they're hiking my basic plan by $10, from $58 to $68, just to continue to improve the quality of my service.
The judge says he was failed to be convinced that the merged party would pursue anti-competitive behavior that soon after the merger, directly or indirectly, would yield higher prices or lower quality for wireless telecommunications services. Why would they do that? Asked the judge.
I mean, but who's using Sprint?
Well, that's the real truth of it is Sprint. In fact, he did say this. The court is substantially persuaded Sprint does not have a sustainable long-term competitive strategy.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I think it was good.
WiMAX,
It was good for
WiMAX?
Sprint customers to have Sprint not be there anymore because it was a dead format. And if anyone's going to disrupt stuff, it is going to be T-Mobile. They're more likely.
Actually, I'm rooting for this merger because I think that this will be a better combined. There's a shot
because the CEO is aggressive.
Well, he's gone, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's leaving.
He's retiring. Yeah. or not retiring. I don't know what he's doing.
Pursuing other
Is he
interests.
just going to do a lot of slow cooking?
Spend
on
more
Sunday?
time with his money. Yeah, and it's slow
I was
cooking.
joking. He's going to found a startup that lets people order rides to take them to coffee dates with comedians.
Yeah, there you go.
So there's the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, is the last, and it is not a roadblock. It is a little more like a speed bump. Once they approve the transaction, it will happen. So if you've been waiting and wondering, the New York, California, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Oregon, Wisconsin, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Virginia, D.C. lawsuit is now over.
Womp womp.
Wah, wah.
I'm sure all of those states' attorneys generals were just had at the wrong end of the stick there. I'm glad that justice prevailed.
Do any of you use T-Mobile?
I am a T-Mobile customer, yeah.
I've used it. I don't have it right now, but
I have. Well, my problem is I have a little bit of everything. So, but my iPhone is using T-Mobile right now.
Okay.
Why? What do you ask? What do you want to know?
I was just curious because I didn't think. I just remember when there was this. I forget which Samsung Galaxy it was. We were all in New York, and they gave. At that point, Samsung didn't want to actually have to pay for review units, so they would get the carriers to put the bill, and only Sprint was willing. So they gave out all these Galaxy 8 or Galaxy 9. I think it was Galaxy 7 or 8 phones to everybody on Sprint, and then no one could get a connection, and everyone was trying to.
It's
review
really
the phone
variable.
without any functioning connection.
If you're in Kansas City, Sprint works great.
well,
It's really variable. It's very location based.
The big thing,
you can't say one carrier is better everywhere. That's just not the case.
We had a pretty good view of it because of the live views, because we would be watching our live view modems all the time, and there was always like.
But don't they do multi carrier?
That's why we could tell what.
Oh, I see.
All over the U.S., we could tell how the carriers were doing.
It was always Verizon that was the best.
It went actually back and forth between Verizon and AT&T, and every once in a while you'd have a city that did really well with T-Mobile.
Right.
But Sprint was
never
always like
shows
these
up.
weird little it was like barely using the modem, and we were like, why did they even put them in here?
Well, and I don't know who it was. I think it was Renee said the evil word WiMAX, and that's what happened to Sprint. Right?
Yes.
They went all in on WiMAX instead of LTE, and that.
And I worry that millimeter wave is going to be the same thing. That they're going to invest heavily in it, and it's never going to be a consumer technology. It's going to be like a stadium technology.
Yeah, the millimeter wave is another WiMAX, and that all this 5G hype is BS.
Well, especially, I mean, AT&T can get away with not just like in advertising claiming that their LTE is 5G, but also have like a pip appear like in the actual status bar of the iPhone saying, "Hey, you've got 5G."
That's such BS.
It's like
gross.
Oh.
Which I think we were going back and forth on Twitter. When my phone is on 5GE, I assume that it's going to be worse than LTE because it does. It's wonky, and it doesn't. Suddenly, I'm not going to work as well as I was working before.
It's actually a good reason not to get the Samsung S20 because you have to get a 5G variant, which means battery life, more expensive contract.
So they swear that the battery life is going to be
better
with their new modem. They swear that battery life won't be affected because if you don't have 5G, that whole part of the modem just shuts down. But I'll believe that when I see it.
Yeah. Well, but
again, it's like you're paying for that chip regardless of whether you have that service or not, and that doesn't sit well with me.
And there is a reason they put a 5,000 milliamp hour battery in there.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling it might have something to do with the 5G. Let's take a break. There was a announcement that I was going to, but I think I'll let one of you save it for your pick of the week. That's what's coming up next. I didn't want to step on anybody's pick of the week. Our show today brought to you, and you know this, I don't have to tell you, by our favorite product ever, LastPass. We're big fans. And, of course, I've been using LastPass for 10 years now since they started. It became clear to me very early on that there was no way I was going to have good password hygiene. You just can't remember hundreds and hundreds of passwords. So what do? You either come up with memorable passwords, and more likely what you do is you have one password, just use it again and again and again. And I did that for a long time. That's such a bad idea because with all the breaches going on, as soon as one site gets breached, if you use that password anywhere else, they will try it everywhere else, and you will get breached again and again and again. You've got to have a password manager. What does a password manager do? It generates long, strong, completely random, completely non-memorable passwords, and then keeps track of them for you, so you don't have to remember them. So all the incentive not to use strong passwords goes away. LastPass has a security assay that will actually go through all your passwords, say you've reused this password, do you want to change this site, and it helps you get rid of all your bad stuff. That security score is so fantastic. And if you're in business, all of the bad things that you do or did before LastPass with your passwords, your employees are doing, and then some. Writing passwords down on a Post-it note, putting them on the screen. You know, there was just a global password security report, and in it said employees reuse a password on average, on 13 different sites and apps. 13. That's why when you run that security score, if the first time you turn on LastPass in your business and run that security score, 47,000 businesses, by the way, use LastPass and do that the average score was 49%. That's terrible. That means more than half of their passwords are reused or weak. The fortunate thing is LastPass will help you fix all that. It solves those access and authentication challenges for businesses. A unified password management vault. They also have things like single sign-on, which does the unheard of. It both makes you more secure and it's more convenient. They support multi-factor. That's better than two-factor. Of course, they support YubiKey and Duo security and all the sophisticated, but they also do multi-factor with things like geolocation and IP address to really make sure that the people who are using your bank account and your other resources are the people who are supposed to, you know, and that's in the business, that's super important. LastPass has over 1,200 single sign-on applications in their vault there. That means those are applications you don't need to use a password for. Your employees can log in, but it's more secure. It's more secure. Your data is encrypted and decrypted at the device level, so LastPass never gets access to that data. Only you do. That's why I trust my LastPass vault. That's my secure vault on all my devices. That's where I put my passport, my driver's license, my social security numbers. That data is secret, and your master password and the keys used to encrypt and decrypt data are never sent over the internet. They're never sent to LastPass's servers. They're never accessible by LastPass. Only you get that. As the gold standard in security, and they want to stay that way, they engage trusted world-class third-party security firms on a regular basis to conduct routine audits, to test the service, test the infrastructure so you can use it with confidence. Why we use LastPass Families at home. We use LastPass Enterprise here at Twit. In my mind, this is a security no-brainer. It's table stakes. If you're not using LastPass, you're not doing it right. You need LastPass for your business, for your personal life, and you're going to love it. It's easy to use, and it makes security easy. Visit LastPass.com/twit. Find out how they can help you. LastPass.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting MacBreak Weekly. Oh, I'm going to start with you, Alex. I always put you at last because I know yours are going to be the most expensive.
Two things.
Yeah.
One is I am no longer at Pixel Core.
Did they fire you finally?
They fired me. I fired me.
No, it's his business.
No.
Where are you?
I have moved on.
Did you get a
Pixel Core
job?
closed. I got a job. I'm like,
Are we going to lose you?
No.
You have a job that is not incompatible with your appearances?
Yes.
There you go. So we know who
I was
you're not
really
working
worried.
for.
Yeah, I thought he was going to get a job with Apple for sure. And that would be it all over.
No, I'm working with 090 Media, 090.media, and it's a lot of the same things that the Pixel Core did. I'm working with a guy named Mark East, and I'm really excited about it. And so I'm going to be the head of operations, and so just doing,
Yay! Good job.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So,
finally gainfully employed.
Now you can steal pens without stealing from yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I was getting worried about you because you were really burning the candle at both ends. That was tough.
You know, it
was really tough.
You should always try starting a company, but it was a hard. It was driving me into the ground.
Next, we got to get Lisa a job because she's doing the same thing. When it's your business, there's nothing to stop you from working 24 hours a day.
You can never get it all done.
Nope.
You know, and so I'm excited.
Congratulations.
I'll get to continue to work on some really cool projects.
090.
And, yeah,
there it is.
Yeah, so.
Oh, so you're doing some of the same things.
A lot of the same things.
You're following Kanye West around.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So, no, a lot of the same things. We were very compatible as far as how we approach things.
Nice.
And the kind of work that gets done there. So.
Well, and I'm sure that's big news for your previous clients. They know that they can once again employ you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sure 090 appreciates that.
Yeah, so
that's nice.
So anyway, so that's the big news for me. And then thank you. And then the app for today is not very expensive. It's called Kabak. I think it's Kabak or Kabak.
I like it.
Kabak.
What is it?
So
Augmented reality food.
So you basically lets you do virtual reality food.
Oh my God, he's got a delicious dessert on the table.
If you've ever been
so hungry right now.
Look at this. This is awesome. And unfortunately, I can't quite reach it. It's way over there.
I think you can reset it and then.
No, don't reset it. Oh, I liked it where it was.
And then we can
put it on the table again.
Yeah, put it.
There it is.
A little closer.
Ooh.
So the thing is
Wow,
it's kind
what
of like
is that? I want it. It's noodles with the
it's the virtual version
ice
of
cream and caramel.
like when you're in
sauce.
Japan and you always have those kind of plastic dishes out front.
Oh yes.
Like when you walk in, except now you can do it right in front. So this is what I'm more interested in is the fact that this is a picture of the future of where I think that we're going to be able to see a lot of things like this, where you can you actually get to see what you're going to order. Because a lot of us, especially when you're in another country or in a new restaurant, there's there you go.
And it's 0 calories.
Oh, I closed it. Bring back the puff things. Oh, Daddy.
So
can you integrate this into a fitness app, like so augmented reality? You're just running, trying to catch up.
You earn this. Oh man!
At the end of your run is like the place where you can actually buy the profiteroles.
Brownies and cookies in a pan. So are these actual?
I'm not sure if
items?
they are not. I just think that it's a great example of AR being actually used in a useful way. I think a lot of times we're wondering, like, why are people going to use AR?
Oh, yeah, bakery.
And so this is a really interesting. You got to kind of let it grab on.
Scan the table.
Yeah, it's got to scan the table. It's got to throw some
Scan the table. Place the donuts.
As usual, if you can attach a technology to one of the 7 deadly sins,
exactly,
you got a success on your hands.
So this is, and it's Kabak. It's Kabak.
It's free. Look at the paisley cake.
George was asking.
But it's got all these famous places that you can go eat.
So, and this is a good example, by the way. If you're wondering what photogrammetry is, this is photogrammetry. So this is, you take a bunch of photos of the stuff and you turn it into 3D models.
So somebody from Kabak went to the
I have no idea how they did it.
Club
but I can guess. My guess is that they took a little kit to the restaurant and had them make it.
Yeah, because it looks real.
Yeah, because they're taking photographs and then they're turning those photographs into
Wagyu beef tartare with a mix, pickle, vegetable, and truffle pearls. Oh my God! Oh my God! Snails a la bourguignon.
So it's a slick little app.
Burrata with tomato tartare, avocado, and carousel bread. Are you getting nauseous?
But a lot of times you get.
And he's getting nauseous.
I'm just I had plans to just like make heat up a can of soup for dinner, but now it looks like I'm going somewhere for a burger.
I recommend
Alex every time
the tortelloni carbonara with pecorino sauce and crispy bacon. This is so good.
Bacon.
Anyway, I think we're going to see. This is just the beginning. I think that we're going to see
everything's. Well, wouldn't this be a good menu if you went to a restaurant?
Yeah.
Instead of having,
and you can do it on your phone as well. You don't have to use an iPad. We just happen to. iPad was easier to look at.
If I want to order a Big Mac with fries, I can get a 3D version of it.
Well, I do think it makes sense more for the kind of restaurants that are showing there, where they have a specialty that is like, I don't know what that is. And there have been times, I admit, that I've ordered in other countries where I got something completely different than what I expected. And so,
right.
Yeah, I love this.
Fish with
it's making me so hungry. Okay, Quebec, K-A-B-A-Q.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Alex Lindsay. How about you, Lori Gill? What do you got for us?
Well, I just started watching a TV show that you can stream on Netflix called Lock and Key. That's L-O-C-K-E and Key. And it's pretty adorable and pretty fun. It's based on a comic book that I actually also read that came out a few years back. It's maybe almost 10 years ago at this point. Written by Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son. And this is sort of like a teenager's version of a horror
It looked
story.
good, but I didn't watch it because I thought it was a young adult thing.
It is. It's definitely like PG-13, but it's adventurous, but also a little bit dark. It's not, it's not anything that's revolutionary, anything. But if you're sitting around on a Saturday afternoon and you just kind of want to, have something fun on the background, this is it. It's not childlike at all, but it is, it focuses on the children in the family. It's they're the ones that go on this like kind of terrifying adventure. So,
Lock and
but it's really, really weird. The original comic book that written by Jonah Hill is just very creepy and dark. And this kind of it shares that same vibe.
Jonah Hill's somebody
sorry,
else.
I didn't mean to say Jonah.
I love that.
Totally different type of person there. Joe Hill.
For a moment, I said, "Oh, I didn't know Jonah Hill wrote stuff." Oh,
no.
Yeah, okay.
Joe Hill. But it meets that kind of same eerie creepiness, but kind of gives you the teenager, the PG-13 version of it pretty well.
You know what?
So check it out.
I see my son spending a whole weekend watching.
Yeah. I think you would love it. This segues though into something that is in a way my pick of the week, because you notice as I am here in Netflix browsing around, you notice something different.
I was gonna mention that.
You notice it's not auto playing I would like quickly move the remote control before the autoplay started.
So stressful.
So I didn't have to see the trailers.
Yeah.
This was the biggest irritation on Netflix for years. They finally gave you a way to turn it off. You have to go in on the web, weirdly enough, and you have to go into your account, and then you have to go into an individual account and go to playback settings. But look at this. They finally added autoplay controls. You can uncheck, and I unchecked both of them. The one where you're watching a TV show and it immediately goes to the next one before the credits are over. I think the credits deserve to roll, so I unchecked that one. Yeah. And then also, that's next episode in a series on all devices. And then autoplay previews while browsing on all devices. I unchecked both of those, but you now have control of that. And incidentally, that's a per account thing. So if you have other people on your Netflix account, they can decide how they want to have it. But I just hate those autoplays.
I just wanted it to mute. Like I don't mind if the stuff is moving. Right. It's visually interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. If they didn't have a sound on it, that wouldn't be as bad.
That's what the Apple TV Plus stuff does. It just plays in the background.
Yeah, I don't mind that. You're right. It's the noise that bothers me. So anyway. Yeah. That was such a big story that I was watching the local news on Saturday or Friday, and it was on the local news.
You've really missed the target when it's on the local news that you took something away.
But they fixed it just in time.
Taika Waititi.
So he had to scramble to find something new.
He was going to bitch about Netflix autoplay. Man, why didn't I win an Oscar? I could have done that. Well, too late now.
Yeah.
Andy and Akko, pick of the week, and this goes right with your Casio wristwatch.
Well, see, I want to start by just denying this scurrilous accusation that I'm hopelessly stuck in the 80s. Okay, that I don't like embracing new technology or thing. I just want to say categorically that I am a modern man of the 2020s, and I embrace everything that's new and wonderful and different. My mind is open. So now let's go to the pick of the week, which is the Sony Walkman.
But this isn't your father's Walkman.
No. This is it's much more modern than a Walkman. It's actually an iPod.
Oh, wow. It's about time.
I'm at least in the 20.
And look at that, 16 gigs. I mean, we're talking 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Okay, yeah. See, this is like the Sony Digital Walkman. It's the Sony NWA55 was just it was released overseas late last year. Just released in the United States just a couple of weeks ago. It's now I absolutely respect anybody who looks at this and says why this is no point to this. This does not interest me at all. That's absolutely true. It's either going to be this is either the sort of device that is either perfect for how you listen to music or of absolutely no use to you at all. Now I'm the person who I have streaming services. I use my streaming services when I like an album, though. I put a ring on it and I buy it by either buying it on CD and transmogrifying it. I have 10,000 songs in my library. At some point, it became there was a lot of sense in deciding, well, gee, for just $220 and $40 for an SD card, this takes a micro SD storage in addition to the internal 16 gigs. I can have my entire music library on this device. I don't have to stream anything. I don't have to tap through Apple Music's suggestions. I don't have to say, hey, Valentine's Day is coming up. Here's a playlist for people for a romantic here's a playlist for people who aren't doing anything for Valentine's Day. Here's a playlist for October 12th if you're a little bit late in this. It's like, no, I want to see the album I was just listening to, or I just want to have control over my library. Also, I'm in the position where I like the idea of having my music on a separate device. I also have music on my phone, but I like the fact that I can have this on a separate battery. This thing will last about 40 hours of playback on one charge. Standby time, because it doesn't even run iOS or Android. It's just it's an embedded OS. So on standby, if I just like charge it once and don't listen to it for a month, it will still be almost fully charged when I wake up again.
Oh, that's good.
It has a headphone jack, which is also nice. It obviously supports Bluetooth. It also supports the higher quality codecs of Bluetooth, so aptX HD and LDAC. So if one day I buy like really nice Bluetooth headphones, I'll get the best quality possible. And even when it's just on my desktop, this will also act as a DAC. So if I plug this into the USB port of my MacBook, it will be identified as an audio output device, and I can use the built-in DAC that's in this device, which is probably better than the one that's built into the laptop, and use it that way. It'll also work as a Bluetooth receiver. So if I want to use my fancy $60 Sony headphones here with my new iPhone that doesn't have a headphone jack, I can plug the headphones into this, use this as a Bluetooth interface for those things, and also Sony has like snappy covers that are magnetic and really, really cool. Anyway, there you can spend. It's an audio device, a category where you can spend up to $2,000 for these really nutty makes and models. But this is exactly up my street. It's $220, which is about how much I would pay for an iPod Touch. The positive is that it does not have Wi-Fi, it does not have this sort of stuff. It's just a music player. And so it is, again, either you will see this and say, wow, I should do that with my music library, or this will be of absolutely no interest to you whatsoever. And I respect that other position, but if you are in the position where you have a music library, you don't want to have to burn up your phone battery every time, or have to choose which subsection of your library you want to put on your phone, because who has the money to spend for the amount of storage to put on an iPhone so you can actually have your entire music library on the thing. And I also like that if I'm in the city and I don't want to be tracked by the government, I can turn off my phone and still listen to my music.
This supports high-res music in FLAC.
Yep,
format, which is
through
nice.
the headphone jack. Yep, all the way to the maximum that you can buy. It's questionable whether you can actually hear the difference. I think I can on some, but I wouldn't put any money on that. So it's very much future-proof. I did wait to get the previous model was the 40 that had everything except for aptX HD. It has just plain old aptX from Qualcomm. HD is kind of misnomer. It's not really high definition music, but it will let you stream Bluetooth, play Bluetooth music through 24 bits of audio quality instead of 16 bits. So okay, it's a provably larger number than 16. So it was, for me, for the same amount of money, was worth waiting a few weeks for. So,
I said 16 gigs, but it'll hold SD cards.
Exactly, it has 16 gigs built in, but also a micro SD card. The specs say up to 128 gigs, but that's just the highest that they will absolutely promise. I have a 256 gig card in there right now. I've also tried a 512 gig card, the good kind, not the cheap Alibaba version of it, but and it all works fine. The only thing I will say, there's one thing that is absolutely heinous about this. Talk about vintage, proprietary charging and data port.
You should have started with that.
I know. Well, this is exactly what I went through. It's like I was looking at all. There were like 3 different kinds that I was looking at in terms of a standalone digital music player, and this was right at the top of the list for every single category except for that proprietary charging port. And finally I had to decide that the next one that I wanted, that had the features that I wanted, would cost me an extra $150. And I decided I don't want to spend $150. I can spend an extra $20 to get 2 extra Sony charging cables for it. And again, because I can listen to it probably for an entire week at least without having to recharge it, it's not as big a pain point as it could be, but still there's a certain amount of feeling unloved by God and or Sony when I discovered that no, it doesn't come with USB-C.
You know what I really, really want is a device like this that'll play my audiobooks. And I know the iPod would, and the iPhone do. But
you can get the next step up from this, which runs Android and actually has full access to the Google Play Store. And so you can run Audible, you can run Apple Music, you can run Spotify. I decided not to get it only because, again, what I really wanted was I want to be able to not have to worry about charging it like every 2 or 3 days. Right. And because it's still an Android device with Wi-Fi, even if you put it in airplane mode, after several days, you'll lose some battery. And I just decided that it's also for another $100, and I'd much rather just get the. I want to be stuck in the 80s at least for this sort of material.
Very nice. The Sony Walkman, it's back, baby. It's back.
It doesn't come with headphones, but it should come with earbuds that have like a little orange tips to them.
Yeah.
That they missed such a perfect trick there.
Oh yeah.
Come with the Awesome Mix Volume 3.
There's something about this that makes me want to like get my son a cassette Sony Walkman and a cassette player. Make him like take Spotify and record it to cassette and then wander around with it.
Alex, you don't want that. My partner has a huge collection of cassette tapes that takes up half of the living room. You don't want your son getting into that.
God. They're all punk, though, right? They're all punk music, I hope.
No, it's everything. He's a tape collector.
Oh, no.
I don't get that. I
used to have
that.
I used to have up until only a couple of years ago, I had a Denon cassette to cassette duplicator, which
we've got 3 of them.
I kept that around for a long time.
Yeah.
Does he also have a handlebar mustache? And
you're laughing, but after the electromagnetic pulse, he'll still be listening to music.
That's true. That's a good point. Renee Ritchie, pick of the week.
So this one, it was really exciting to me. They have released a couple of years ago, flashback, Apple released Swift Playgrounds, an iPad app that was designed to introduce people to code. Apple has this belief that coding should be at least a base level language for everybody, that everyone should be taught coding literacy. And they followed that up with everyone can code programs and curriculums. And today they launched Swift Playgrounds for Mac. So it's a Catalyst app that takes the iPad app and adds things like the menu bar, the sidebar, all the sort of Mac trappings to it. And it looks like a really, really good Catalyst app. Like I'm hoping this is Catalyst app, the next generation sort of stuff. And you can do multi-windowing, and you have access to almost all the same stuff you do on the iPad. There's no ARKit on the Mac, so you can't do the ARKit parts of Swift Playground, but you can do the robots, the drones, and it looks like it's getting great support from the third parties who support Swift Playgrounds on iPad already. It does the code highlighting. You can put the different windows next to each other. It's really a Mackie Mac experience for Playgrounds. And one of the really cool things is you can then take this code, cut and paste it into Xcode, and Xcode will just understand it. Like it'll code highlight it, it'll do everything for you. And then you can start making it into apps if you want to. So it's sort of like, yes, it's Swift Playgrounds for Mac, but it's also a bridge to take people from learning on the iPad from a very young age in schools or on their own to being able to take it to that next step and eventually go like you can from iMovie to Final Cut or from GarageBand to Logic, sort of step up and make your own apps one day if you want, and not with like a baby language or a demo language or like a for kids language, but the same language that there are just so many apps on the App Store already being built from. So it's just come out today. I don't have any video or anything to show yet because Apple doesn't have any big pages up on it yet. But you can get it from the Mac App Store, and it's free. And if you have a kid who's even at all interested in coding, or you wish they were, and they don't have access to an iPad, but they do a Mac, it's a great thing to let them play around with.
So you think this would be a good first language?
I think the Playground version of it, like maybe not, like if you're like 11 or 12 or older, I think there's simpler things if you're younger and you just want to learn the basics of of programming blocks. But this, if you're 11, 12 and you want to make apps one day, that's your big dream. I think this is a great way to start out because like the same code you're writing is the same code that would be used in an app, and you could gracefully graduate from one to the other.
Nice. I'm thrilled they're putting it on the Mac. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Swift Playgrounds, and it's free. Of course,
Swift Playgrounds is amazing because it really gives you that instant response.
There are paid lessons, though. Some companies are offering lessons in the Swift Playgrounds player. I think. Am I wrong?
But Apple is doing they're spending tens of millions of dollars on this stuff, and yes, it does benefit them in the long run, but it's also really good for schools who can't afford to get curriculums or to do this kind of stuff on their own.
Yeah, there's some great stuff. That's really nice. Better than a cassette.
Just a little.
How many
To each his
cassettes
own.
do you think your SO has, Lori?
Minimum 500.
Holy cow.
Yeah, he's
And does he
been
do
collecting
this-
them since he was a child, too. So
Does he
he's-
listen
he's-
to them, or did you just look at them?
Yeah. Yeah, we listen to outdated media in our house all the time, and yeah, he'll buy a tape or two, and we'll come home and listen to it. And sometimes it's warped because it's that old that wherever he bought it from, it's all warped. But no,
he
we
have
listen to
albums,
stuff
too?
on tape all the time.
Does he do
Oh
albums?
yeah,
Vinyl albums? Yeah.
we both
That I
have
understand.
a huge collection.
Yeah.
of,
That I
of
understand a
vinyl
little more.
albums.
Cassettes were kind of a step down from albums.
We used to get probably 5 or 10 albums at the radio station every day. You know, I was a music director
Oh, wow.
for a radio
You
station.
saved
so-
them all?
Oh no, we did not. we found that the best way, if you took 7-Eleven cups and you had 2 of them, and then we had a stove in the we'd heat the records up so they get all soft.
Like bowls.
And so
Melt
you
the vinyl.
you have to keep moving them or they'll get smooth. But you just keep moving them over a gas stove until they get warm, and then you put them on top. You center one on top
You
of the
melt them
7,
up.
and you push the other one on top of it, and you pull it out. It makes a great vase. I'm just telling you, I used to give them away.
And
People
then-
used to come to this radio
and-
station. I go,
and do
here,
that with
have a
8
vase of
cups?
Rock Over London.
Occasionally, you'll open one of those sleeves, and there'll be cocaine in there. So it's
Well,
wonderful.
And the CDs made good shot glasses.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
see, you know.
You're so
And then,
strange.
and then you get the phone call like last. I just want to make sure you got it because that was a labor of love. After my family died in that fire, I really what saved my life was making music and pouring. And really, that tells the story of my life. And did you have a chance to listen to it?
It made a great
And you're looking at this molten
vase.
blob.
You know, it was mostly.
You know what? I would be
And did you get the
honored
cocaine I
if
put
somebody
into the
would turn
sleeve?
my music into a vase. So don't worry.
Alex will have it by next week, Lori.
So you're saying that if anybody wants to come to your house and turn all of those tapes into one big vase.
Well, that was our upset. That was our upset because Rock Over London at some point in the middle of it switched from CD, which was generating a lot of our shot glasses, to DAT, which was just a tape. And then they sent us a DAT recorder, which we then used for a lot of other things that we shouldn't use. But it was great because we had a DAT player that we recorded concerts with. It was great.
Yeah.
I think going back to the old analog days is not the end of the world.
No,
No, it's
makes a
fine.
lot
I
of
just
good
I
vases.
just don't get I get like wanting the tapes, but then like I buy CDs because they're dirt cheap now, secondhand. But I always convert them to like digital because otherwise I don't want to keep track of them. I don't want to like have them piling around. So it really surprises me when I hear about people who like are really really into cassettes, not as a nostalgic thing, but this is how they want to use. I don't insult people for doing that because you don't have to defend liking what you like. But I'm really curious about what it is about the experience that makes people want to. Their go-to media is a cassette whenever you want to go and enjoy an album. That's interesting to me.
Especially when the argument, I have my own argument for the vinyl having a warmer sound to it,
Sure.
and to me it does sound better than digital. But tapes don't fit into that
Yeah,
category.
exactly. And
they sound worse.
And you can't get a new player because all the new players are just like there's one manufacturer that's making the mechanism and they're just for novelty purposes. So you have to buy like a 30-year-old player and then replace all the belts and replace all the. It's again, I'm fascinated by this approach.
Yeah, me too.
The size of one cassette, Lori. And you can have
Yeah.
everything on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes MacBreak Weekly for this Tuesday. Alex Lindsay, now at, what is it?
090 Media.
090 Media. We've changed your lower third already. That's how quickly we work.
Just like that.
But the best place to figure out what Alex is up to is go to @AlexLindsay, LINDSAY on the Twitter.
I can't promise it'll always be about a Mac. It's about lots of things.
Many, many fun things.
Yes.
How's the kids' TikTok going?
It's going well.
We should give a plug to that.
We have a new. We're trying something else. I mean, we're not as productive as we should be because we're working on a bunch of stuff that we're putting out. We're testing. But the last one that we did, we realized there's all this old Saturday Night Live stuff that's really an internal joke that no one gets except for us. And so this is see if you guess it. Here, watch that
So
one.
this is the McDubbies.
Yeah, McDubbies.
Which is really Alex and his kids.
This one is.
Stop it. Stop it.
No effects.
Stop it.
You don't have to yell.
Oh.
So
Yes,
I don't know if you
John
remember.
Lovitz.
Is
John
that
Lovitz.
David Pumpkins? What is that?
It was from no, it was from.
You don't have to yet.
No, it's a little bit more of a dramatic from Annoying Man from the 80s. It was John Lovett. My family watched a lot of Saturday Night Live when I was growing up.
Did the kids have any idea what they were enacting?
No, but they thought it was funny.
They just said it'd be good.
They said it'd be good. Well, I've done it to them most of their life, where the little finger, and so they learned to say you don't have to yell. So they I don't even know if they've seen the original, but in my family, it's a very old thing. Anyway,
this is actually kind of fun, I have to say.
Here's what's fun about TikTok is just that you think of something stupid and you go do it really quickly, and when you're done, you're done. Like the one before that, we were testing. This was actually shooting with a big camera.
Really?
And I actually took this one and I put it up on YouTube. So there's a McDubby's YouTube.
Oh yeah, we showed this last week. Yeah.
And then before that, my kids wanted to do green screen. So
Yeah.
the one before that is I experimented with green screen. But you think of it, and like an hour or two later, it's done. And
I got to tell you the other good reason. I could never take pictures of my kids. They'd hide their faces. They said, "No, Dad, stop it." This way, you're engaging them, and now you have all these great videos of the kids when they were little.
My wife was just like, she's just excited that I have something to, like that I'm
something to do
with the kids.
Keep you busy in the office.
Well, the kids and I just have a lot of fun on Saturdays. We run around with ideas, and there's about like 5 or 6 of them right now that are kind of in middle of development that'll come out soon.
Sometimes these special effects take time.
Well, yeah, there's a whole
schedule.
We went from like making a couple to we've got like 5 different of the memes that we're going to put in create a story with. So if you watch them,
it's the animatics that really slow it down.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand.
Exactly. I do have a database in Storyboard.
Lori Gill, thank you so much, Lori. Always a pleasure. Lori's managing editor of iMore at Appaholic on the Twitter. Don't forget Sickburn, her fabulous band. Soon they'll be selling cassettes after every show.
Actually, funny you should say that. Not Sickburn, but another band that I'm in. We are going to put out a series of 4 tapes.
Wow.
So it's
that's very retro.
It's 4 tapes, and there's 2 songs on each. And it's going to cost us as much money as it would cost to record, to make an album, and it's just 4 tapes.
And here's the beauty part: no one can play it.
You should release on Sony Hi-Pack. That's even more esoteric.
That there, speaking of esoteric, that there is Andy Ihnatko. He's on the radio, WGBH.
Terrestrial radio.
Terrestrial. WGBH in Boston. When are you going to be on next?
Not until next week, because I'm traveling starting tomorrow, so I'm going to be on the highways and byways. But next Friday, it looks like about 11:20, I think, in the a.m.
Awesome.
Also at the Boston Public Library, so come in and see it, watch it live.
Nice. Ihnatko.com, IHNATKO.com. And always got to watch Vector, because it's great every day. New videos about every subject you care the most about. imore.com/Vector. And this guy here, that's the host, Renee Ritchie. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you, Leo.
Stay warm.
Renee, did you anticipate that the name of your show would get really, really edgy with the with the flu outbreaks?
Never. Attack vectors like from malware.
I get it, Vector. He was thinking of calling it Patient Zero, but decided a Vector would be better. How Apple killed BlackBerry. This is one that is near and dear to Renee's heart.
I know.
The end of a Canadian phone legend. Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be interesting. Yeah. Secret history. Ladies and gentlemen, we do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday. Usually, we're a little delayed today because of the Samsung event. We started late, but usually around 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1700 UTC, 1800 UTC if you want to watch live or listen live. We may put those streams up at twit.tv/live. People who are participating live should go to the chat room. That's the place people hang out when they're watching and listening live. irc.twit.tv. Actually, you can also be in studio. We've got a visitor today from Houston in Brazil. One person, Giancarlo. Welcome. Nice to have you. All you have to do is email tickets at twit.tv. We'll put a chair out for you. Of course, we know your life is important, and so we don't want to take up any more time or be any less convenient than we have to, so you can always download a copy and listen at your leisure. We put all of these shows up at twit.tv/MBW. All 700. Yeah. We also make them available on YouTube And best thing to do, of course, is find a podcast app you like and subscribe. Still using RSS, and we always will. So just subscribe to the feed, and you'll get it automatically the minute it's available.
It's all about the Overcast.
Yeah. There's an interesting article yesterday about what Spotify is really trying to do is essentially put podcasting out of business. Because
are you listening to any podcasts on Spotify?
No, but that's the thing. They would. Here's what. Well, we'll talk about. I'm going to do it on Twig. I saved it for Twig because it's not really a Mac story, but it's an I'll talk after we get off about why there's genuine reason to be concerned.
Well, we can talk about the rumor of Apple original podcast next week.
Yeah, and although Apple is still preserving that RSS feed subscription model, and we want that to stick around. We want Marco Arment with Overcast and Pocket Casts and all the casts, all the RSS-based players to continue.
Yep.
But Spotify would like everybody to start listening with the Spotify app because, well, that's more money for them. So that's an interesting.
I will admit that when Amazon started selling more than books, I was like, why are they even bothering? I think of them as books. So I'm a
similar thing.
So I have a little bit.
Well,
of
there's no margin in that business.
Well, they just bought Ringer, Spotify. Right? So if you're a Bill Simmons fan, yeah, but you're just not a sports guy. But it's very interesting what they're up to. So we'll talk about that tomorrow on Twig. Thank you, everybody, and subscribe to the RSS feed. Keep podcasts alive. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Now get back to work, because break time is over.
And Cruise watch is turning.